I'd like to begin with a question. I think I know the answer, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Who here would like to maximize their positive impact in the world as efficiently and effectively as possible? Wonderful. Thank you for that. I'm so glad to see that we're all here for the same reason. In 2005, I had just graduated from Northern Illinois University, and I was asking myself, like many college grads, how can I get out into the world and make as much money as quickly as possible? So, like any rational, logical person who wants to make a lot of money, I decided to go volunteer at my local humane society. Now, that might not have been the most lucrative decision that I've ever made, but it was a really great one. I felt really good about everything that I did there, everything that we accomplished as a team. I remember one specific case involving a young black Labrador named Aubrey. She came to us with a serious medical condition, and her owners had to relinquish her because they couldn't afford to care for her anymore. Well, we had our veterinarian look at her. We ended up performing surgery, and we found out that she had ingested part of a Nerf ball. Obviously not very good. We were able to remove the Nerf ball. We were able to fix her up. And a few months after foster care, we were able to adopt her out into a loving home. Now, I felt really good about everything that we had accomplished with Aubrey. She was a dog that was really, really in need, and we stepped in and we made it work. But then I started asking myself some questions, like how much did it cost us to help poor Aubrey? And taking a step back from that, how much does it cost us to help all the animals that we help here at our shelter? And I found out that it cost us about $300 for every cat and dog that we adopted out into a loving home. Now, on the surface, that might not seem like such a bad deal, right? If you have to choose between buying the new Xbox or saving a life, I think most of us are going to choose to save the life. But still, I wanted to do more. I wanted to know how I could do more with my life. I asked myself the same question I think many of you are asking yourself here today, and that is, how can we do the most possible good? I felt really good about saving Aubrey, but I wanted to save as many Aubreys as possible. That's what I'm here to talk to you about today. I've got one more question for you here. Who has heard of effective altruism? All right, we've got some people, great. Unfortunately, a lot of you have not heard of it, so let me recap what it is. Effective altruism is about finding effective solutions to some of the world's biggest problems. Think of it as an equation. How can we take our time and add it to our money to equal the greatest possible good? Now, in order to figure out how to do that, first we have to identify some particularly impactful cause areas, and the effective altruism community has done just that. And they've also identified some particularly impactful charities. So let me give you a couple examples of the type of work that I'm talking about. Give Directly is a charity that uses a novel approach to combating poverty, and that is cash transfers. Give Directly provides direct cash transfers via phone-linked payment systems as a method of improving quality of life. Or Helen Keller International, which is a charity that focuses on prevention instead of the cure. More specifically, they provide technical assistance and funding to government-run vitamin A supplementation programs to help people suffering from malnutrition and blindness in sub-Saharan Africa. And the Against Malaria Foundation, which is a charity that identified how a small change could result in massive harm reduction. More specifically, the Against Malaria Foundation uses insecticide-treated bed nets as a way of preventing the spread of malaria and reducing child mortality rates. Now, all these causes sound really important, and the types of work that's being done sound really impactful. So, and everything we've talked about in this conference, there's lots of really impactful, great things out there. So again, we come back to that question, how can I do the most possible good? Well, there's another cause area that the effective altruist communities have identified as particularly high impact, and it's the one where I think we can do the most good in the world, and that is reducing and preventing animal suffering. Now, this is desirable not just for the benefits on the target population of animals, but for the far-ranging effects that it has on a wide variety of cause areas. Now, I'm going to talk about some of those wide-ranging effects, but first, let's talk about why you might start with animals in the first place. There are an extremely large number of animals in the world. That's a good start. There are about 100 million animals being used in research. We have 1 billion companion animals around the world, and we have 33 billion animals in farms at any one moment in time. This last category is particularly impressive because it also does not include fish or aquatic animals, and if it did, it would be far, far higher. Second, animal advocacy as a cause area is extremely underfunded. Of all the donations in the United States over the last few years, only 3% of our total donations have gone to either animal causes or environmental causes. The slice of the pie is so small that they don't even get their own piece. And finally, animal advocacy is tractable in that we understand not only the problems, but we understand potential solutions to the problems. Now, even though animal advocacy might rank highly in terms of scale, neglect, and tractability, that still doesn't give us the answer we want. We need to dig deeper to find where we can have the greatest possible impact. Because otherwise, how do we know what we can do? Now, this is the question that troubled me throughout my career. In fact, when I started out, as I mentioned at the beginning, I worked for companion animals. I quickly transitioned to work for wildlife and wildlife rehabilitation because I found out, due to simple math, I could help so many more animals taking that approach. I could help a cat or a dog for $300 at the companion animal shelter, but for $30, I could release a healthy wild animal back into the wild. You see, I was an effective altruist back then, even if I didn't know what the term is, just like I think many of you are probably effective altruists, even if you didn't know what the term is. But I was still bothered by the fact that no matter what I did, I was still limited by the amount I could do as an individual. There was only so many mouths I could feed. There was only so much time in the day. Then I found out about farmed animals, and my mind was blown. 99% of all the animals that are used and killed in the United States are used and killed for food. But despite this, charities that specifically focus on helping farmed animals receive less than 1% of the total funding that we give to animal advocacy. Now, if you remember that chart we looked at just a moment ago, where we identified that 3% go to either animals or the environment, if we just cut that in half, say that 1.5% go to help animals, of that 1.5%, 1% go to help farmed animals. Bear with me, I'm going to bring it all home. That means that 0.015% of our total donations in the United States are going to help what is arguably the greatest source of suffering on the planet today. I don't think those pie charts conveyed the message enough for you, so I decided to put up some numbers. Just in the 5 minutes I've been speaking to you here today, 5 minutes, almost 600,000 chickens have been killed for food and millions of fish. 5 minutes. Now keep in mind, this is not hyperbole. This is not me changing around the data to try and influence you or give you a message. This is hard data from government agencies around the world. And this data becomes even more compelling when we consider how the landscape about how we perceive non-human animals is changing fast. Studies on animal cognition have shown that pigs' intelligence is more on par with chimpanzees than we thought in the past, and that they have a natural proclivity to be social creatures. Undercover investigations are showing firsthand the terrible suffering, boredom, and overcrowding that occurs on a daily basis on a factory farm. And more evidence is emerging about the catastrophic effects of animal agriculture on the planet and on the communities that are around these farms. Now, speaking of these communities, this is a waste lagoon at a factory farm in Dalhart, Texas. It is the detrimental effects that animal agriculture has on a variety of cause areas that cement it as the most impactful cause area where you can do the most good. In fact, even the United Nations released a report in which they concluded, and I quote, "The livestock sector emerges as one of the top 2 or 3 most significant contributors to the most serious environmental problems at every scale, from local to global." The findings of this report suggest that it should be a major policy focus when dealing with problems of land degradation, climate change, air pollution, water shortage, water pollution, and the loss of biodiversity, end quote. What a statement. Now, of course, this is important to humans, not just because environmental sustainability in general is important to humans, though it is, but because combating factory farming and reducing the consumption of animal products helps with other problems we face, like obesity and type 2 diabetes, a variety of cancers, and other medical ailments, all these things that are plaguing us as a society. And in this way, combating factory farming is an animal issue, it's an environmental issue, and it's a human issue. Now, once I found this out, I joined my organization, Animal Charity Evaluators, in order to find the most effective ways to help animals. Now, we do this through evaluating animal charities, but in order to evaluate animal charities, first, we need to understand what tactics are being most impactful. So again, we come to this important question: how can you do the most possible good? So I'm going to shift a little bit and talk directly to all of you here today, how you can do the most good. So one obvious thing that might be the elephant in the room is you could go vegan, right? If you gave up animal products, then you would spare over 200 animals from being killed for food each year. Now, that is a tremendous thing to do. It's not bad at all, but it is limiting because there's only so much you can do as an individual, again, like we talked about earlier. And let's be frank, for some of us, it can be particularly difficult to change habits that have been ingrained in us from a very early age. So I'd like to talk about one other option you could have, and that is ethical offsetting. You could offset the detrimental impact of industrial animal agriculture by donating to effective animal charities. Let me give you an example. We work with a donor named Max who donates over $1 million each year to effective animal charities. He's not vegan, and he has no intention of being vegan, but he recognizes that he can do far, far more good by focusing his time on making money and donating it to effective animal charities. And in fact, while I encourage all of you to be vegan, the fact of the matter is you can do far more good by taking that approach. The fact of the matter is that he will have helped hundreds of millions of animals through the course of his lifetime if he continues to donate every year. So like Max, you could donate to an organization like the Humane League, which is one of our top-rated charities, and which uses corporate campaigns to improve animal welfare standards in a meaningful way. Now, these are particularly strategic because they can affect millions of animals in one fell swoop. Or you could support an organization like Animal Quality International, which conducts undercover investigations and uses technology like virtual reality to educate the public and hopefully get them to change the way that they treat animals. And possibly, maybe get them to do, I don't know, maybe try that Impossible Burger that we've heard so much about. And speaking of that Impossible Burger, that's the third and final thing I'll talk to you that you can do, and that is invest in clean and plant-based meat. Now, we heard about this a little bit earlier. For those of you who might not have been here, there's an emerging field in creating meat without the use of animals, without killing and slaughtering animals, and it's referred to as cultured or clean meat. Richard Branson has said, in 30 years or so, I believe we'll look back at the way we killed animals en masse for food and be shocked. In the future, I think the norm will be clean and plant-based meat. And I think he's right. Now, like Richard Branson, like Bill Gates, like heck, even Tyson Foods, you can invest in this. You can help it make it the future of food as quickly as possible, because the reality of the situation is it's not a question of if, it's a question of when. And the question we should be asking ourselves is how quickly can we get there? If you want to stay on the philanthropy side of things, you could support a charity named the Good Food Institute, excuse me. They're another one of our top recommended charities, and they work with the public and government to ensure the adoption of these products as quickly and smoothly as possible. Now, ultimately, everything we've talked about here today comes back to this important question: how can you do the most possible good? I urge every one of you here to ask yourself how you can use your unique perspective and your unique position in life to create the greatest possible good. I firmly believe that investing in effective animal advocacy is the way to do just that, not just for the benefits that it bestows on animals, but for the benefits it bestows on the environment and on people. So for all of you who raised your hand in the beginning and said, yes, I want to maximize my positive impact in the world, I hope you see how strategically thinking about effectiveness can enable you to do just that. Because I think ultimately, all of us are effective altruists, or we wouldn't be here today. Thank you.